a psychologist, a guy that came to work in a gun-free zone, decided that he would, pack that day, or maybe he just ignored the rule. And a good thing he did, because he was able to take out a crazed patient that decided to go on a shooting spree. But it's another example of a law-abiding citizen saving the day with, exercising his Second Amendment rights. I wanted to bring on Edwin Walker, of course, with the law firm Walker in Byington. He's firearms program attorney for the Texas U.S. Law Shield. Glad to have you on this morning, Edwin, back here on the Voice of Texas.
It's a pleasure to be here. We're always happy to be here.
Yeah, am I right, though, that this is another example that totally torpedoes the left-wing idea that firearms necessarily equate bad things?
Well, yes, and I don't know. I don't think Pennsylvania has an outright prohibition on concealed handguns in hospitals. I think they pretty much do like Texas does, and they allow hospitals to set their own policies.
Yeah, that was a rule that the hospital had. I think that particular hospital declared it's a gun-free zone, which basically, which I call killing zones.
And this is, of course, there is the extremely unfortunate part of the story where the caseworker lady did die from a gunshot wound from the crazed patient. But other than that tragedy, this case is a perfect example that absolutely refutes every single one of the left-wing arguments for gun control. It showed how a person, in spite of all the state and federal laws that prohibit people who have been diagnosed with mental disorders, people who have criminal records, because he had both, from getting firearms, it shows that obviously crazy people or criminally intent people with criminal intent will get their hands on firearms no matter what law is in place. And it also counters the argument. I mean, prior to this, the Mothers Demand Action had previously put forth that there has been no examples of a private citizen with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun.
Which I could come up with 2 or 3 on a general Google search and put that to rest.
Exactly. And so this obviously was the case with that. I mean, the guy's a psychiatrist. He knows the crazy people he deals with every day. He knows, crazy people better than pretty much all of us. And he realized that there might be a situation, which unfortunately came true for him, that there might be a situation where he has to use a firearm to defend not only himself and others, and he did.
Edwin, let's boil this down to brass tacks, because I think you and I and most common sense Americans, everybody here in Houston with the sound of our voices, understand that law-abiding citizens exercising their Second Amendment rights actually are able to do some good things out there in America, and in the past have done so. So what's really at play here, what the agenda is, what is the name of that group, that moms group you cited?
The Moms Demand Action.
Yeah, Moms Demand Action.
They're currently the Squeaky Wheel in the gun debate.
Right. And they are teamed up with the extremist left wing in this country that is aimed to take away Americans' ability to defend themselves with utilizing the God-given rights the Second Amendment protects of self-protection. They are after removing opposition to complete absolute government power. They want to get the guns out of the hands of we the people. That's the basic agenda.
Yes, it's a Bloomberg-funded group, and now that Bloomberg is no longer mayor of New York, he has vocally stated that he's going to devote a massive part of his fortune to, basically, he calls it defeating the NRA, but it's not. It's defeating the rights of every single law-abiding American citizen. I mean, he wants to impose his will against everybody who owns a gun, or even people who just simply believe in the right to own a gun.
Yeah, and I think that we as Americans have to recognize the broader agenda here. This has nothing to do with individuals necessarily protecting themselves or carrying a firearm into private businesses. I mean, the left-wingers out there, God, there was one tweet that was put out that got some national interest, some liberal tweeting out that, it was basically, here's what she said. She said, I think that all these nuts, she was referring to we pro-Second Amendment folks, all these nuts showing up in businesses carrying rifles, we liberals ought to take tasers and shock them and show them how foolhardy their efforts are. Nothing too serious, just just tase them, incapacitate them, and then move on, advocating out-and-out violence, whereas these folks carrying firearms are not pulling the trigger. They're just carrying the arms. Here's a liberal advocating utilizing a taser and actually tasing somebody, and they don't see the irony in their advocacy or their statements.
No, you often see this in a lot of left-wing debates. I mean, it's certainly not limited to gun rights, but it's very, very odd that a lot of times the left wing of the spectrum is always going to be the first one to pose either violence against people that oppose them, or government action against people that oppose them, or trying to take some sort of economic or commercial action against people who oppose them. I mean, for people who supposedly support the First Amendment, which I don't buy into that. I never have believed it, but that's common wisdom that, if you're on the left wing of the spectrum, you support free speech. No, they are the most anti-free speech folks on the planet.
All right, so Edwin, what can folks do? I know that you're with Texas and U.S. Law Shield. What can folks do if they want to help beat back this? It has been a push that has grown exponentially in the era of Obama. What can folks do to make sure that Second Amendment rights are protected? Where can they go? Resources they can have at their fingertips? Give me a website.
Well, the Texas Law Shield website, texaslawshield.com, uslawshield.com, contains one of the primary goals of Texas Law Shield is to provide information, firearms information to the public at large and to Texas Law Shield members specifically. So they can always go to that. There's a Texas Law Shield Facebook page. It's fully accessible on the internet, and of course, just simply Google gun rights. There's lots of other pro Second Amendment organizations. And one thing that you should do is keep in mind, especially here in Texas, the legislative session is coming up in January. Here in Texas, we and this is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you only have 5 months every 2 years to try to effectuate legislative change in Texas.
Right.
Like I said, in most cases, that's a great thing. When it comes to gun rights, be sure and put pressure on your legislature because you only get this very small window to do that.
All right, Edwin Walker, U.S. and Texas Law Shield. Appreciate your time and expertise here on the Voice of Texas, AM 700, KSCV.